Fallout 4 is one of those games where leveling up brings with it a ton of new tools to survive your trek across the Commonwealth, but instead of going for the highest level possible, what's the lowest level you could complete the game at? For this, I wanted to see just how little experience you could gain without using glitches or exploits and without using console commands. But without further ado, let's get into it. To begin this journey, I just tried to quickly make the most beautiful individual this side of the Commonwealth, and instead created a face that every time it was on screen, I couldn't help but chuckle just a little bit. It's probably just because I started this challenge after a full day at work, but hey, it's the little things in life that make it worthwhile. But next came the Vault Tech rep, and I finally could go set my stats. And this time, it's incredibly easy. Since I don't want any experience points, keeping intelligence and charisma at 1 was a no-brainer. I can't get experience if I can't pass any speech checks, and keeping the intelligence at 1 just meant that if I did gain experience, it would be the lowest amount possible. I kept luck and perception at 1 because I won't be killing anything, so none of those perks are useful to me, which left a 10 in agility to rival the blue blur, 10 in endurance to withstand the generosity of raiders with their bullets, and a 4 in strength, to carry stuff. After that chat, I started a speedrun to get to the vault, but inside, apparently I moved so fast that I outran the scientist who allows you into the cryopods and had to wait for his happy ass to take his long walk. Now being turned into an ice cube, watching my wife catch a bullet with her teeth, and stealing back that wedding ring I spent my life savings on, I made a break for the exit. Of course I had to dodge some ankle biters, but naturally these rad roaches didn't want to be corralled, but my escape went a lot smoother than it did in the paddleball run. Now out in the Commonwealth, the challenge could officially begin. Vault 111 and Sanctuary are essential locations in the game for the ending I'm going for, so discovering them is fine. Plus this gives me the ability to loot everything here, including the cellar that some people didn't know existed. But with my pockets full of more random stuff than a hobbit who stole jewelry from the disabled, I started my journey to Bunker Hill. To no one's surprise, the shortest quest line to beat Fallout 4 with is the Institute. When weighing the options of XP, locations, and how much fighting has to happen, these guys scrape by as the best candidate for this challenge. Bunker Hill is one of those key locations I'll need for later in the run, but also it's the safest to get to without being surrounded by too many other areas. Nothing super crazy happens on this hike as you can just scoot around some location triggers. But before too long, I arrive at Bunker Hill and have a spot to stock up on supplies. Now I have to head to the Old North Church, another key area and another easy one to get without causing too many problems. But Good Neighbor is a little tougher to navigate. Basically, you'll be following broken down highways until you get to the cemetery right outside of the Vault 114 metro entrance, but from there, it's a straight shot home. But now inside Good Neighbor, I could finally recruit McCready. All I have to do is pay 250 caps and this man will gladly run straight into hell for me, which is exactly what I planned to do. After all, if my companion kills something, I don't get experience points, which normally would be an issue, but here, it's the main strat. And to help him out just that extra bit, I made sure to borrow a fat man from Cleo as she ran past to listen to Hancock. This will help out immensely later. Now with someone to deal damage for me, it was time to go break out Nick Valentine. Except getting to the metro leading to Vault 114 was a little harder than I thought. For starters, I learned that the back alley entrance you leave with Nick after helping him escape doesn't actually spawn until you do so I wasn't able to just slip in. But that's okay, that just means I have to take the front door. Except, this one area is so tight-knit that trying to get just into the metro seemed impossible. For starters, it seemed like no matter what I did, the Boston Commons location would trigger if I even looked at the metro. And after 20 minutes of creeping around back alleys trying to edge my way in, it just seemed that if I wanted to use the metro, I'd have to accept Boston Commons with it. That's okay, I wasn't planning on this when routing out the run, but it's only an extra 21 extra experience points, so it's not that bad. I mean, I'm still level 1 going in to save Nick, so that's gotta count for something. But heading inside to the Triggerman hideout, I never expected it to be so painful. Don't get me wrong, I expected to die a lot, but I would have never guessed that McCready would have the aim of a stormtrooper. Hell, even this is an insult to them. I mean, why even give this guy a sniper rifle if he couldn't hit anything? The first 4 guys in the hideout gave McCready such a hard time that there was no way I was going to be able to take out everyone here. So I used the tried and true method of tactical retreats. But as a punishment, I was shown what a home run looks like in Vault 114. On my second attempt, I was given the best one-on-one fight you could possibly imagine. No, it didn't take 5 minutes. It took 7. But with Nick saved, I finally completed a quest and hit level 2, gaining the Fortune Finder perk for hopefully some extra caps. But now with the party filled out, I got to watch McCready and Nick very slowly clear out the hideout. It's crazy to think that between a detective and a gun for hire, these guys couldn't hit triggermen standing out in the open. And somehow, some way, both of these guys had reputations as resourceful individuals. Explain, Todd. But after a slog and a half of watching paint dry, the 3 of us arrived at Skinny Malone. And now all that had to happen was I needed to fail my speech check and have Skinny Malone turned into spaghetti. So I picked the hardest speech option and...
Might let you go.
Wow.
What? I have a charisma of 1. How did I even pass that? Okay, I'll just try again.
Bullet in him, and I just might let you go.
Wow.
What are the chances of that? Alright, fine. I'll force the speech check myself.
Shut us down now. See if she had it.
That nuke wasn't meant for them, but desperate times call for desperate measures. With 2 of the most scattered-brained allies around cleaning up the rest of the triggermen, I was able to leave, level up, grabbing the cap collector perk, and make my way to Diamond City, which wasn't too bad as the major strip of road is just wide enough to bypass all the trigger locations. Now in Diamond City, it was time to do some quick running around. I tried to grab the key to Kellogg's house early, but since it required a lockpick check, I'd be paying up for this one later. And if you're wondering about the Diamond City markets, if you just run around the city towards Kellogg's place, you can skip that location altogether. You don't need it since you have Bunker Hill unlocked. Before continuing the story, I needed to grab one more thing. A mini nuke that Arturo keeps in his otherwise unguarded house. I'm an incredibly paranoid individual when it comes to locking up my house, and you'll never catch me lacking like this. But since he more or less invited us in, we helped ourselves to his much needed ammo and then met up with Nick. Blah blah blah, story progression stuff, and now I needed the key for Kellogg's house. Which is just a go back the way you came type adventure that had me interrupting Piper's meeting, bribing the mayor's secretary, getting the key, and on my way back down before Piper could even begin to understand what the hell just happened. But after raiding Kellogg's house, it was time to track him down all the way to Fort Hagen. I could have swapped companions here, and now that I think back on it, it probably would have been a better idea to do so, but you only live once, right? This run showed me a couple of new things that I didn't know, however. Like this, for example. Did you know the Radstags had a kill animation? But if you're quick enough, you could dodge it, and then they crash into cars and explode. But that was the most exciting part of this trip, as any open area is incredibly easy to walk around locations. Now at Fort Hagen, I did the tried and true rush past the stint strategy and was now outside Kellogg's fight. But something was off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something didn't feel right here. I found out that during the dialogue options you couldn't give your companions commands. That's fine, so I reloaded and gave McCready the Fat Man to make this a quick fight. However, when it came time to actually use the damn weapon, he swapped back to his rifle. I did try this section out without the Fat Man to see if McCready could just take out Kellogg, but I must have forgotten how the triggerman went because, no, this wasn't gonna happen. McCready just got so confused about how many targets there were and got shredded before even firing a shot most times. But I figured if he could at least fire the Fat Man, then we'd be set, right? Well, that's what I thought, until I checked his inventory and realized the mini nuke was gone. And then it hit me. The Radstag didn't cause a car to explode. This noodlehead shot it with a mini nuke. Of all the dumb things you've done so far, McCready, this is the fucking worst. So I reloaded all the way to Diamond City and took the mini nuke away from him because obviously he can't be trusted, and then ran all the way back to and through Fort Hagen. But even with ammo now, this still didn't mean it was as easy as I thought it was gonna be. Even with the power to level a city block, McCready still panicked under pressure and just shot whatever was closest, which usually ended up being both sins, and that's fine and all, but Kellogg was left unscathed, and since McCready couldn't win a one-on-one with a rad roach, there was no way this was gonna work. So I tried over and over to just get that one shot off, and finally I got lucky. Normally at the beginning of the fight, Kellogg usually stealths up and hides, you're normally running towards the back of the room. But for some reason here, he ran forward right into McCready shooting a mini nuke at his feet. What should have taken maybe 10 minutes got dragged out to 45 minutes of watching McCready goof around. But now I could at least continue the main quest line. Because of Diamond City and Good Neighbor being unlocked, it wasn't long before I was knee-deep in Kellogg's brains and learning about his secret lover Virgil in the glowing sea. But before heading out, I made sure to stop by everyone's favorite wandering merchant to grab the spray and pray. This thing was going to be a saving grace later on. I just knew it. Now came the glowing sea. And getting to it wasn't so bad, as navigating in the open world is easy. But what was bad was watching McCready shoot the ground while Duke wrestled a Yaoguai for supremacy. I gave McCready all the ammo I could buy, and he was just throwing it away and not even helping with the fight. This guy hates me, I swear, he has to. After watching all that precious ammo wasted, we made our way to Virgil. Virgil's just located near the corner of the map, so if you head in that direction, you can skip the Children of Adam completely and avoid all the other locations. Now at Discount Shrek's house, he told us about the Courser, and after a small walk from Good Neighbor, we arrived at Green Tech Genetics. Now I won't waste your time here. Running past everyone is still the same strat to preserve ammo, and then I watched McCready solo the Courser. Nothing too crazy here. But then came the railroad. The goddamn railroad. I've done the math, and experience-wise, the Institute just barely scrapes by in terms of the least amount gained. So that means that the railroad have to go. We tried to just go in guns blazing, but Glory had other ideas. Poor McCready couldn't get up fast enough before getting blasted, so it was back to the drawing board. Reloading a save and scrounging up whatever supplies I had after McCready used all of it to kill one Courser, I went to Cleo and Good Neighbor and bought every bit of 45 ammo I could. I was hoping the spray and pray could at least thin out the crowd, and now it was time to test that theory. Fun fact before we do this, did you know that if you get locked into talking to Desdemona, you can actually walk around behind her and see Deacon hiding just around the corner? What's cool about this is the entrance to the headquarters doesn't even technically exist until you either talk it out or attack them. I've never seen this before, so I just thought it was kind of cool to show you. But back to the real reason I was here. I punched Glory to kick things off and had McCready focus her first, being the main damage dealer. All the main members funneled into a hallway and McCready just got blasting. Desdemona and Deacon went down, but with one final punch from me, they were gone for good and I didn't gain any experience. Glory took a bit of work, but eventually joined the same fate, gaining us a minigun to replace McCready's weapon. With the main room cleared, now came by far the hardest and longest part of this operation. I gave McCready the minigun and set him loose. All he had to do was take out Tinker Tom and Dr. Carrington, and for whatever reason, this man was insistent on shooting everything but them. Like, if you think Stormtrooper aim is bad, you clearly haven't run missions with McCready before. I watched him burn through 800 rounds of minigun ammo and have nothing to show for it. I don't think he had a single thing. Meaning I had to sit by and watch the most inaccurate gun for hire in gaming history try to make a Modern Warfare 2 quickscope montage. This took 30 minutes of waiting for one of these bastards to drop. But if you've seen any of my videos lately, you'll know that I could watch paint dry at this point if it meant completing the challenge. And thankfully, Tom and Carrington soon joined their friends on the big train ride in the sky, and I could finally talk to Virgil and get the plans for the teleporter. Now came the faction part of the run. First, I needed to break the Minutemen out of Concord. Now, I tried to get into the bell tower near the Museum of Freedom, which would allow me to jump across the roof and skip the trigger, but this is another Boston Commons scenario, and no matter what I tried, Concord got unlocked in the process. Oh well, these things happen, I guess. But making my way inside the museum, I had McCready show off his skills and eliminate the raiders. For once, I'm actually surprised he managed to hit any of these guys. But then I met up with the Minutemen and then set McCready on the raiders outside. And unfortunately, this was about as normal as it got. No other factions showed up for once, and when I tried to get the local Deathclaw to fight on my behalf, somehow the raiders killed it? So McCready just went back to raider hunting. I did some sick parkour and missed the museum trigger and told Preston to meet me in Sanctuary. Now, the reason I picked the Minutemen to build the teleporter is easy. For one, you already have Sanctuary unlocked as a build site, so you don't have to do any additional running around. And two, to get in good with this faction, you can straight up fail their recruitment mission. Every faction has you do something before they help you build the teleporter, and in the case of the Minutemen, you go all the way over to Ten Pines Bluff and then kill the raiders at Corvega, unless you've done something else along the way. But instead of that, I aggroed one of the settlers outside of the trigger location and then let McCready shoot them enough to down them. They ended up in a bush, so I'm not sure if I hit them for the final shot here, but I failed the quest successfully and then could begin construction on the teleporter. To minimize experience here, you just build every required piece, obviously, and for the bare minimum energy requirement, 5 medium generators and 1 small one is all you need. With the teleporter built, I made it inside the Institute and began the onboarding process. This is still part of the institutionalized quest, which means no extra experience was gained. Now we begin the final phase. First, I had to head over to Libertalia by swimming way off the coast of the Boston airport, and then running past all the raiders to drop a recall code and then watch McCready do absolutely nothing. And I mean nothing. I tried to command him to do literally anything. I even took out my pistol to try and coax him to attack, but nope, this man straight up refused to do anything. He just stood there as people shot him, literally 2 feet away. It's official. This man hates me. But the courser with us was able to do all the heavy lifting, thankfully, and before too long the mission was complete. And now I was off to Bunker Hill. This was practically a rinse and repeat of the synth retention, running past the guys with guns, yell at some runaways, and then run until I get the option to teleport away. But then came a meeting with Father on a rooftop. For this, I had to discover the CIT ruins. There wasn't any way around this, but in the grand scheme of things, it won't really matter. I chatted with Father and then met up with his homies to tell them that I was taking over the family business. But before I could do that, I needed to go source a super battery from Mass Fusion. And much like with the Battle Ball run, this was both an easy race to the bottom floor and then a rough date with robots. McCready was straight up useless here, not because he wasn't trying to do anything, but because every time I picked him up, he'd get melted all over again, just like Glory back at the railroad. The real saving grace was Allie. At one point, I got involved in one of the longest staring contests ever with the Sentry Bot, but Allie isn't one of those people that believes in chivalry and decided to help me at any cost. Then came the Assaultrons. I saw people in the comments of the last video saying I could hack them, but where's the fun in that? Plus, it gives experience points, so that's a no-go for this video. So it was a familiar strategy of running around on the stairs while my helpers finally put them in the ground. Moving into the main lobby, I tried to stick around and see how the synths stacked up, but the Brotherhood did not like that at all. So instead, I made a beeline for the exit and ran back home to move on to my next quest. However, I gained experience here for completing the quest and hitting level 12, which is fine, but then I gained another set of experience as well. It's okay, I've accounted for a couple oopsies, I just have no idea where this comes from. But now came the final push. A quick meeting needed to take place over at a house surrounded by gunners near Grey Garden. And I bring up the fact that it's near Grey Garden because since McCready decided to sit this fight out, I asked the robots nicely to come sort this out for me. Inside the house, I yelled at a man trapped in a closet and then met up with Father to record and drop my new mixtape. I watched him give a demonstration, told the board I was cutting their funding due to what I found in their search history, and hit level 12. If it seems like I'm speedrunning this section, it's because I am. Nothing major happens in the way of the challenge other than visiting locations we've already been to or avoiding some altogether. But now moving on to the end of the line quest, I completed it in record time, granting me level 13 and moving on to Airship Down, the second to last quest of the Institute quest line. I chatted up some lady scientists and then began the assault. And this went swimmingly. Discovering the Boston airport is a must, nothing I could do there with that. But with hitting the generators, you had to make sure that no one was near them when they blew up, otherwise you'd gain experience. We're talking like 4 experience or 12, but it's still experience. This took a couple of tries to get right, but the best part about all of this was that the synths that came in after the generators went down stomped out the Brotherhood here. Like, it was no contest at all. Vertibirds were being shot out of the sky, power armor wearers were getting slapped, and the synth we kept locked up in the basement hacked Liberty Prime quicker than I've ever seen before, causing Mr. Optimus Prime to blast the magic sky blimp, and with that, I hit level 14. Now, this one's going to stay up in the air because depending on where you draw the line, the answer to this challenge has 2 outcomes. When speedrunners do a run, they stop the clock when the HUD fades away before the final quest is completed. But if we count the quest completion after the credits, then I hit level 15 with some room before 16. So the final verdict here is up for grabs, but for anyone with a keen eye, I missed and did a lot of silly things. For starters, the sick-ass helmet Tinker Tom has gives a 1 to intelligence. I was so concerned with the drip that I didn't even think to check the stats. It wasn't a ton of experience points I gained because of this, but it's enough to point it out. I don't think not wearing it would have lowered my level before 14 or 15 at all, but experience gained is still experience gained. However, this is a pretty dope way of seeing just how much of the game you can actually avoid, and due to being a low level all the time and having the most useless companion ever, you're always having to come up with out-of-the-box solutions to the most basic of problems. I highly recommend trying it out yourself. With that being said though, earlier this week I asked you guys about the lowest level you've beaten the game with, and for all of you who said 1 through 10, all I have to ask is how? Drop some tips for you, man, in the comments below, because I'm totally willing to do this again. But before we go, a channel update. I am looking into doing this challenge again in the future with crazier skips, but it involves rolling back the game a little bit, so that's why I wasn't able to do it this week. So if you guys want to see that, let me know. And I currently have the entire Khajiit Baker run recorded and cut up, but the script was completely whack, so I'm going to have to redo it again. And one last thing. At 20,000 subscribers, I'll be diving into the Frost mod for Fallout 4, and I've heard nothing but bad things, so I'm excited to struggle through that for you guys as a massive thank you for all of the support you give the channel. As always, I've been Chris from Crisis Gaming, and I'll see you guys on the next one.